Speak on this show, 2021, episode 19. Today's topics: low priority, NFL race norming, silence him, situational wokeness, and the mind, body, and soul segment. Y'all ready? Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak on the I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Saturday morning episode of the Speak on the Show. Trent Branch, good morning, my brother. Good morning, my brother. Appreciate the support, Tim Jordan, good morning, my brother. Good morning, appreciate the support. Appreciate y'all tuning in this morning. Saturday morning, y'all, let's go ahead and get these formalities out the way so we can get this show going. I got some information I need to pass on, and it's going to be some enlightening information. So let's do this. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. RW Coolins across all social media platforms. Go there, like, subscribe to the YouTube page. Follow me on Instagram. I'm starting to post more on Instagram, starting to get back on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. All the videos are on YouTube. All the videos are on Facebook on the R.W. Coolins page, not the Rodney W. Collins page, because I don't use that as much anymore, but it's there. If you want to reach out to me, rwcoolins@yahoo.com. Good morning, Lady Michelle. Good morning. Appreciate the support. So that's where you can find me. R.W. Coolins, just type it in. It'll pop up. Everything you need to find, you can find it on the internet. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665 is the call-in number. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Say what you mean what you say. That's all it's required. We don't require much here on the Speak on the Show. Say what you mean what you say. That's it. We come in as friends, we leave as friends. Your opinion, my opinion. We agree to disagree, but we leave the same way we came in, as friends. That's all I ask. That's the only requirement there is with the Speak on the Show. So I appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. Memorial Day weekend has passed. Had a good time. I'm sure everybody had a good time. Safe. We're in the 101 critical days, as I mentioned last week, of summer. Watch out for the motorcyclists. Watch out for the children running in the streets, all that kind of stuff. And watch out, make sure if you're supposed to wear your mask, if you haven't been vaccinated, wear your mask, do what you do. I'm not telling you to go get vaccinated. What I'm telling you to do is do what you feel is best for you and your family. But make sure while you're in that thought process, you also take into the account the other folks that you interact with on a daily basis. All right. I got to take a deep breath, y'all, because we're getting ready to get into some things, and it's probably going to get a little rocky here this morning. There's a lot of things going on that I'm feeling. I got this feeling. Let's go on and get in this. Low priority. Now, I say this when it comes to our political system. Our political pundits, our people in political positions, all those type things. Speak on it. Yeah, we can ready to get there. We can ready to get there. All those people that are in the positions to, as we say, do the will of the people. Also, these are the people who write the laws, the bills, those type things. So this week, Thursday, I think it was Thursday, the anti-Asian hate crime bill. I don't know if that's specific words, but you know where I'm going. The Asian hate crime bill was passed on a vote of 94-1. The lone vote in opposition was from Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley. He didn't agree with it. And this bill was denouncing discrimination against Asian communities in the United States, creating a new position at the Justice Department to expedite reviews of potential COVID-19 related hate crimes against the Asian community. The bill would also direct the Departments of Justice and Health and Human Services to issue guidance raising awareness of hate crimes during the pandemic and work with agencies to establish online reporting of them. It now goes to the House before being signed into law by President Joe Biden. But from what I know, and what I read, this is going to be a no-brainer as far as getting through. It's going to be a no-brainer as far as getting through, as far as, because of everything that kicked off with, with the COVID-19 and the China, the flu that came from China and all that kind of stuff, the past president, with his thing. But here's where, for me, everybody may not agree, but here's where, for me, the priorities and the water, as I like to say, get a little muddy, a little murky, and a little bit like that. Now, we all know COVID-19 kicked in last year around February, March, whatever. They said it wasn't real, back and forth. All the things we talked about the COVID-19. And this Asian hate crime bill came out because you had people in the streets that decided that they didn't like Asians at that time because they thought they brought the flu, the COVID here, so they were going to take it upon themselves to take action. Now, from what I know and what I remember, the number of cases of Asian hate crimes, I don't think exceeded, other than maybe verbally, but actual assaults and everything like that. And people can correct me if I'm wrong, but the assaults maybe added up to maybe 10, 20 across the United States of America, depending on the extent of what the crime was, other than the verbal abuses and things like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this bill. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done. But where my problem comes in, and I call this the low priority, is when it comes to the bills and the laws for people to affect people, to help people that look like me. Now, the George Floyd and Policing Act of 2021. This has been being bounced around all through the Congress and the Senate and all this kind of stuff. And the only thing right now that's holding it up is something called qualified immunity. Qualified immunity. You heard me talk about it before on the show, and I've talked about it. Good morning, Josh Boy. Appreciate your support, bro. And I've talked about it before, and qualified immunity is giving the police who may commit these crimes, which is what it is now, some kind of buffer, so they're not charged for the crimes they may have committed, even though they may be found guilty. Like qualified immunity. It's across the board. This is what they're saying. So, Trent Branch, I know where you're going, bro. Okay, I ride with me. Buckle in. We're going for a ride here. So, qualified immunity is the only thing holding up this George Floyd Policing Act. Now, we've been talking about police brutality for a long time. You can go back to when they had the slave patrols. You can go all the way up to Rodney King. You can go throughout our history, and this has been there. And there's one thing holding this up. Now, I say that because that's not the only one. That's the one that's kind of the same as the Asian hate crime bill. But there's one other one as well, but we're going to get to that. Keep riding, bro. The John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, Advancement Act. Let's go here. And the For the People Act, HR 1, which are in the Senate and the Congress right now. They're trying to figure out whether they're going to pass. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act, you haven't heard about in a while. This HR 1 For the People Act, they brought up just not too long ago in conjunction with all the things that the states are doing to kind of suppress your vote. But both of these bills are both aimed to, let me read what it says. Both are aimed to overturn regulations that make it difficult to vote, especially for people of color. Now, I want you to understand that, especially for people of color. Now, these two bills have been bouncing around through the Senate and all this kind of stuff for a long time. And what it does, it secures and supplants what you can and can't do to suppress my vote. If my voting rights are being impacted right now at the state level, all across the United States of America. No matter what state you go to and you decide to register, your voting rights are being impacted right now. This is supposed to eliminate all that, but they're letting this go Why? And I'm going to say it again, low priority. But that's not the one. Now, you had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and then it was revised a little bit in 1968. In the Civil Rights Act, my question would be, why did we have to come up with this Asian hate crime bill if you have a Civil Rights Act of 1964 and revised a little bit and added some things to it in 1968 that covered everybody, but you had to specifically, come out with an anti-Asian hate crime bill in 2021 due to a pandemic that happened in 2020, which the Civil Rights Bill was in 1964, revised in 1968, and people of color are still fighting for the justices that these acts and these laws were supposed to provide for us as American citizens. But at the same time, we keep kicking the can down the road about voting rights acts that impact African Americans. We got people kicking the can down the road about the George Floyd Policing Act that affect African Americans. And then let's go back again, because this one, in 2019, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act was brought up and put into play to be voted on. And it was shot down by Rand Paul. He said it was overly broad, so he didn't want to go through. So he stopped it in its tracks. Now listen what this act was. In 2019, the Emmett Till Lynching Act, Anti-Lynching Act, was presented. In 2019, shot down. 2021, the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act is being brought up again. No actions being taken on this anti-lynching bill, but we've already had the Asian hate crime bill pushed through. Low priority for certain things, certain people, certain justices, and certain freedoms that don't account for all. That's all I'm saying. I don't have nothing against anybody, Asian, white, other nationalities. Just because I'm pro-black, as I always say, just because I'm pro-black, don't make me anti anything else. What I'm telling you is we need to really dig in and look at what is going on around us and stop being blind to the fact that this stuff still goes on. When you hear people talk about the systems aren't racist and there is no systemic racism and racism is not, come on. Just eliminate that from the conversation. Eliminate it. Because you know as well as I know that it's true, it's factual, and we live it every day. We see it every day. Just because we're talking about it more now, loudly, does not make it any different than it was before when they were marching and protesting and doing whatever that they needed to do to make their voices be heard. We've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go. And when you look at these politicians that we keep putting in office, people talked about, and I'm going to be transparent here, like I always try to do. But when Joe Biden was running, they were like, Joe Biden ain't for us. And you heard me talk about Joe Biden on this show when the voting was going on. And I eloquently said, things about what the differences between Joe Biden and Donald Trump were. And I wasn't doing comparisons. I was just telling you where we stand and where we could stand and different things like that. The thing about it is this. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, Mike Pence, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, you can go all the way back through all the presidencies that you want to go through. See that see that down that corner right there? I'm putting it the wrong way. Low priority. Low priority. When you look at the rungs of a ladder, And you see where we fit in on that ladder, trying to get where we're supposed to be in this society. We're at the bottom. We're still at the bottom rung. Let's just be honest about it. When it comes to prioritizing what needs to be done for us across the board, no matter who's in charge, no matter who's in these positions, we're a low priority. That's just my opinion on it. People can say what they want, but from my view, my experience, my readings, it's on full display. Now, you can get mad if you want. You can say I'm a race beta. You can say, I'm this, I'm that. Call me what you want. Facts speak for themselves. Case in point. Let's transition to the next one. NFL race norming. National Football League race norming. Now, for y'all that don't know, let me break it down for you. The NFL has officially ended a policy known as race norming due to a civil rights lawsuit. Now, let me read that again because I think you really need to listen to this wording. The NFL has officially ended a policy known as race norming due to a civil rights lawsuit. Race norming is the assumption that Black players had a lower cognitive function than whites. The policy made it harder for retired Black players to get settlement checks for brain injuries. The NFL agreed to stop using the practice race norming, which assumed Black players have a lower cognitive function than white counterparts, according to Mary Claire Dale of the Associated Press. Now, before I go any further, let me give you what cognitive skills definition is, so everybody understands what this is all about. Cognitive skills. Core skills your brain uses to think, read, learn, remember, reason, and pay attention. Working together, they take incoming information and move it into the bank of knowledge you use every day at school, at work, and in life. Come on, Brian Hoodie, appreciate the support. Cognitive skills. Basically, let me put it in words that I understand. Let me break it down like, talk to myself, not y'all. I'm talking to myself. Like I'm a fifth grader. Basically, cognitive skills means how you function, how your brain processes things, what your brain does in order for you to be involved, to be able to use your core skills, to be able to relate, talk, all the different things you can think of. Russell Jenkins, good morning. Good morning. So now I say that definition so you understand that race norming has prevented some retired Black players from qualifying for compensation in the NFL's $1 billion settlement of brain injury claims. In the original settlement, the NFL used a scoring algorithm for dementia testing that assumed Black men, watch this now, that assumed Black men start with lower cognitive skills before they even have an injury. They start with lower cognitive skills before the injury. Let me go back. Cognitive skills, core skills your brain uses to think, read. I'm not going to read it all. You get where I'm going here, right? So we all know to be true that throughout history, and I've talked about this on the show, and I can't remember the exact show, so y'all bear with me. But I've talked about this where they used to say that African-American men had different body types, qualities, brains, all these different things to diminish who we are, to think that we were less than. And now it's coming out that the National Football League, let me say that again, the National Football League has been using race norming to minimize the results of dementia and things that happen to these players during their times. They're minimizing the effects that they have because they're starting them on a lower scale of what their cognitive skills are to minimize how much they need to pay them. And it took a lawsuit of $1 billion. Well, they settled for $1 billion for this to come out. Now, it also say black retirees would have to score much lower than whites to qualify for a piece of the settlement. For example, former Pittsburgh Steelers players Kevin Henry and Najee Davenport were denied compensation for brain injuries based on their scores in the league's cognitive test to judge mental deficiency. But they each would have qualified for compensation based on their scores if they were white. Henry and Davenport were two of 50,000 former NFL players and family members of those players who signed a petition demanding equal compensation for black former players who suffer from cognitive regression. The two ultimately filed a civil rights lawsuit, which led to the NFL making the change on Wednesday. TC, good morning, my brother. Appreciate the support. Initially, they had filed a lawsuit, but it was thrown out by senior U.S. District Judge Anita B. Brody in Philadelphia. Brody later asked a magistrate judge to compile a report on the problem, which led to the petition's ultimate impact on the NFL's decision to make the policy change, according to the Associated Press. More than 2,000 former players have applied for a piece of the settlement, but less than 600 have been compensated, according to a report released by the NFL. More than half of the players who have applied are black. More than half of the players who have applied are black. Now, I'm going to say again, low priority, race norming, National Football League, there's no systemic racism. This is a system. Watch this now. This is a system for retirees to be compensated for their injuries, brain injuries, while they played in the National Football League, and the black athletes were minimized in what their cognitive skills were to not give them any type of compensation compared to their white counterparts. And we, and I'm going to say we, as a society, we're in an uproar about the way they treated Colin Kaepernick because he took a knee. Now, Colin Kaepernick was blackballed from the league, unofficially they say, for taking a knee about the oppression of people, black people to be specific. But then we find out that this race norming that the NFL had to admit to due to a civil rights lawsuit of $1 billion, which they settled, has been going on for years and years and years. And people have been screaming and yelling about it, but it never made that next rung. It never started climbing up that ladder to be dealt with. Why? It's not the fact that these things aren't happening. It's not the fact that people aren't having brain injuries in football. It's the fact of who was suffering from the brain injuries. Trent Branch, we're still being marginalized across the board in all aspects of life. The National Football League is not exempt from systemic racism that we think is only happening in our jobs, in the military, on the streets, in our politics. It's happening all over the place. And why people would think that sports would not be affected by this, because I was going to save this for later, but let me go ahead and get into this real quick. since we're talking about this week, and I'm gonna digress for a minute, but it's all inclusive. Jackie Banks, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate your support. It's all inclusive. This week, the Boston Celtics took their head coach, who was on the chopping block for most people thought, because they haven't advanced in the playoffs or anything like that. And I'm getting into sports, so if y'all don't know sports, hang with me because there's a message to this, okay? The Boston Celtics, storied franchise, decided that they were gonna, the president of basketball operations was stepping away. So they promoted the basketball coach to the president of basketball operations. The basketball coach everyone thought was on the hot seat, thought he would be fired because they haven't advanced anywhere. Stephen A. Smith, Screaming A. Smith, whatever you want to call him, you know who he is, that does the sports. He came out and went on this long dissertation, angry, walked off the set, talking about, the NBA players. Now watch this now. Stephen A. Smith, Screaming A. Smith, said that the NBA players who are majority black should be pissed off because the Boston Celtics decided to take a coach from the floor and put him in a management position who he wasn't very successful on the floor, but they put him in a management position and they didn't even look at black people to potentially take the position. And now he's on the news, he's screaming, he's hollering, he's walking off the set, he's pissed off and everything. But wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Because I know what I know when I know what I know. And when you talk about these things, you got to be all inclusive. Come on, Lynn Sewell. Appreciate the support. I need to take a pause there, y'all. The NBA has 30 teams. In the NBA, there's one black owner, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, Charlotte Hornets. One black owner. Now you got a bunch of minority owners here and there. People got like a 2% here. Jay-Z was in one, Usher was in one. All that. No. I don't want to talk about them. I'm talking about the head chief here. Michael Jordan sits as the owner of the Charlotte Hornets. In his position, I decided for myself, since Screaming A. Smith wanted to bring up why the NBA players aren't pissed off about this promotion that this coach got, to find out who sits in the seat at the Charlotte Hornets, president of basketball operations. And during my research, I found that the person that sits there is Mitch Kupchak. Last time I checked, Mitch Kupchak was not black. But the black owner of this NBA franchise doesn't even have a black president of basketball operations in his organization. So I find it kind of funny that anytime we talk about Michael Jordan per se, or you hear Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless and all these people talking about Michael Jordan, they put him here as an athlete, basketball player. Okay, I get that. 6 rings, not the GOAT to me, but to some GOAT. We're not going to get into that today. Another time, another discussion. However, since he's been an owner, what has he done? What has he done? I set you up for that one, Trent. I knew you were going to talk about the blue blood Tar Heels. I get that. No problem. But damn it, what has he done as an owner? Because one other thing that I need to bring up, since they're out here screaming about who got promoted and all this kind of stuff, where was all this anger when Patrick Ewing sat on the bench as an associate head coach for the Charlotte Hornets for many years? And when the head coaching position opened up in Charlotte, Michael Jordan didn't put him in the position. He had to get hired at Georgetown to get a head coaching job. So before you get out here and play this, situational wokeness, which is one of my topics today, but I'm bringing it up now. Before you get these guys on TV talking about situational wokeness, where it's a situation depending on who it is, stop for a minute and ask yourself, what holds them back from criticizing Michael Jordan? See, we got to be true to ourselves sometimes. We have to get down to the point of understanding, and don't just criticize those that look like you that are Republican. Criticize those who may be Democrat, but criticize those who are doing wrong. If Michael Jordan doesn't have a black president of basketball operations, then you can't be mad at the other organizations that don't have a black president of basketball operations. He's the only black owner in the league. But you, Screaming A. Smith, choose to attack the players as usual. Kwame Brown has exposed that. Choose to attack the players, but you never choose to attack the owners for their decisions. The Rooney Rule in the NFL, same thing. Same thing. Michelle Long, appreciate support. Good morning. Trim Branch. That's who we hired in Mitch Kupchak, Carolina Blue Blood. Just saying. I get the loyalty, but damn it. Does this say more about Michael Jordan and his loyalty, or about people like Stephen A. Smith and their disloyalty or situational wokeness, depending on who they're talking about? That's all I'm saying. You can't straddle the fence on this. Either all in or you're out. All in or you're out. I just don't get that. And I know I went off a little bit, but on the NFL, from what I know, the NFL has no black owners. This race norming, when people bring up talking about, there's no racism, shut up. I said it respectfully, but shut up. Because if you haven't lived it, you haven't researched it, and you haven't paid attention to it, shut up. Shut up. Accountability, I agree. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. Accountability. Accountability. Y'all got me on one this moment. Silence him. Ain't that how that video? It says, finish him. Silence him. You know how the video game, I've never played it, but I've heard it before. But anyway, so this week, in celebration for Memorial Day, Army Lieutenant Colonel, how you pronounce the name? Bernard Kempter. I want to make sure I get his name right because I respect him. I don't know him, but I respect him. Retired, let me get it right. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Kempter was giving a speech on Memorial Day in Ohio. I have to laugh about this because this is the stuff we're dealing with, y'all. And in this event, he started speaking about the role that free black slaves played in the origins of Memorial Day. And when he got to that point and he started talking, somebody cut his microphone off. They cut his microphone off because they didn't want him to tell people about the origins of Memorial Day. So I'm laughing, but it's not funny. But can you imagine, if you ever been somewhere in a speech, somebody's giving a speech, or your pastor's giving a sermon, let's just say, and he's giving it and he's getting into it, and he starts saying some things that people ain't agreeing with, They shut his mic off. He do like, is this on? They done cut his mic off in the middle of a Memorial Day speech that they asked him to come give. Now, mind you, I read in here, the woman, Miss Suchan, I'm gonna call her Miss Suchan, acknowledged that she had reviewed his speech days before he delivered it and wanted some portions removed. He wouldn't remove them. So she said, okay, cut him off, cut his mic. Now this Lieutenant Colonel, 77 years old, who served in the Army from 1965 through 1995, and said he was dismayed by the incident. He said, I find it interesting that the American Legion would take it upon themselves to censor my speech and deny me my First Amendment right to freedom of speech. This is not the same country I fought for. I want you to listen to something I just said now. He finds it interesting that the American Legion now, a veteran organization, would take it upon themselves to censor his speech and deny me, listen, my First Amendment right to freedom of speech. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit. You remember when we had this last president, and every time he got up there hooting, hollering, and saying all that nonsense and lying and everything, the first thing the people would come out and the press say is, oh, it's his freedom of speech. It's right for his freedom of speech. But nobody ever cut his mic off. They threatened to cut his mic off when he was doing them debates, but they never did it. I don't think. Because he was still yelling. Now, see, that couldn't have been me. I couldn't have been a lieutenant colonel. Because I got a loud voice. I get loud. And as soon as they cut the mic, y'all still would have heard me in the chief seats. Because I let it ride. I let it ride. You can cut off the microphone, but you can't cut off my voice. That's all I'm saying. Kempter's mic went silent as he recalled the role of black slaves in honoring fallen Union soldiers in Charleston, South Carolina, shortly after the end of the Civil War in 1865. Citing a Yale historian, Kempter said the holiday was first celebrated by an organized group of black freed slaves on May 1st, 1865, at the remains of a Confederate prisoner of war camp. The ceremony is, now this is it. This is what he was saying. The ceremony is believed to have included a parade of as many as 10,000 people, including 3,000 African-American school children singing the Union marching song, John Brown's Body. Kempter said they were carrying armfuls of flowers and went to decorate the graves. At that point, seconds later, Kempter's mic was cut off. After he said all that, they cut him off. A disclaimer on the video notes that the lapse in sound was not the fault of a production company. Now, that's what they put on the video after the fact. They be lying. They just be lying. They just be lying. Trim Branch, they said portions of his speech were not about what the event was about. Wait a minute. So they claim. Exactly. It's a Memorial Day speech. If you're not going to talk about the true history of Memorial Day and not include those who actually started Memorial Day, then you're doing a disservice. Now, this is his last statement, Mr. Kemp, Lieutenant Colonel Kempter. I was very disappointed that someone would choose to censor my speech. Throughout history, there has been a lot of claims about who actually performed the first Memorial Day service. With this speech, I chose to educate people as to the origin of Memorial Day and why we were celebrating it. Cut and dry. Cut and dry. Now, also, they're going to try to silence this person as well. I found this late last night, give or take. Tom Hanks. Y'all ready for this? Tom Hanks probably ain't going to get another movie in a while. Let's just be real. Trim Branch. So they claim. Plain and simple. There it is. Tom Hanks to America. And this is what he said. Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump, all the different movies, everybody loves that Tom Hanks. He said to America, stop whitewashing U.S. history. Is he going to get, I guess, wait a minute. Can I say blackballed when I talk about a white man? Is he going to get whiteballed from Hollywood because of this statement? I don't know how to use it. That's why I'm asking. But y'all chime in if you know. The actor weighed in on a critical race theory in primary education, arguing that everyone should learn about the 1921 Tulsa massacre. Self-described, this is how they wrote it. Self-described armchair historian Tom Hanks sounded off on what gets taught about race in American schools in New York Times opinion piece that argues every child should have to learn about the 1921 destruction of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right? Trent, you crazy. With his essay published Friday, the actor parachuted into a cultural war currently being waged by conservatives over critical race theory, an academic term referring to the ways racism has influenced history that has become a right-wing boogeyman. Just this week, former Vice President Mike Pence said it was a left-wing myth that systemic racism exists in America. How different would perspectives be had we all been taught about Tulsa in 1921, even as early as the 5th grade? Today, I find the omission tragic, an opportunity missed, a teachable moment squandered, which is what Tom Hanks wrote. Schools should also stop the battle to whitewash curriculums to avoid discomfort for students. Trim Branch, I was just about to bring that up. There it is, critical race theory. And anybody that missed my, show that I talked about critical race theory, you can go back. I can't remember what episode, but if you go back and look, you can get my input on that. Appreciate that, Trent. I, I'm not going to go through everything he said, but let me read this one part right here. The Tulsa riot just passed, and this is a little history on it. Tulsa riot just passed its 100th anniversary. Over the course of 2 days in late May and early June 1921, white Americans stormed Greenwood, an economically booming black neighborhood on the Prairie City, and burned it to the ground, killing an unknown number of black Americans in the process. Estimates range from dozens of black victims to 300 dead, while thousands were left homeless. In congressional testimony last month, survivors of the attack said that some of the dead were simply dumped into a river. A 107-year-old Viola Fletcher said she still can see black bodies lying in the street. Excavators are currently unearthing a mass grave in Tulsa, believed to be the resting place of some of the victims. Now, Tom Hanks also said he marveled at the fact that he only learned about it by way of a New York Times article last year. This is how he found out about the Tulsa 1921 Tulsa massacre. In an article in the New York Times last year, writing that failing to teach about Tulsa and patterns of extreme violence against black Americans had the effect of placing white feelings. Watch this now. This is the part that's probably going to get him black ball, white ball, whatever ball you talk about. He said, Black Americans had the effect of placing white feelings over black experience, literally black lives in this case. You know, when I read these things and I report on these things, and I'm regurgitating what's in the news in most cases. But when you hear people like Tom Hanks, and you know, they always talk about the Hollywood elite and all this kind of stuff or whatever, but they only put this label on when they don't agree with what they have to say. They do it with athletes, they do it with actors, they do it with entertainers. They tell, to shut up and dribble, all these different things that they tell people that are, in the entertainment business, let's per se, because the sports is entertainment. Let's just be real. But when these people decide to let their voices be heard, when they decide to speak out on things that they see as injustices or things like this, the first thing that the other side that doesn't agree with them wants to do is silence them. They want them to be quiet because they don't want them, who have the loud voice, for people to listen to what they have to say and what their experiences are. Now, for Tom Hanks to say that he didn't find out about the Tulsa race massacre until last year from an article in the New York Times tells you everything you need to know. And the other part of it is that we hear these things happen over and over again, where people get mad when we talk about the disparities in how races are treated and how minorities are treated and systemic racism and all the things you can think about that we try to bring light to, that they try to dim the light on. But then when you have people like this to speak up and talk, they either blackball them, whiteball them. They try to cast them out. They try to go against everything they say. They say, oh, he's elite. He doesn't know what he's talking about, all these different things. The bottom line comes down to this. Tom Hanks, from what he said in his article, now whether he believes it or not, I don't know, but I don't think he would take the time and effort to do this if he didn't believe it. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But Tom Hanks is one of the allies that we need in this fight for justice. Let's just be honest about it. Because we always talk about, and I'll go to the military. We are all around the world. Well, let me get this quote in here first before I go there on this diatribe. Trent Branch, the opposition to CRT is based on guilt. They don't want to address it. This country was built on atrocities done to people of color, to include Native Americans. Exactly. Straight and to the point. James Battle, good morning, bro. They always want to hide the truth. Makes them feel better about themselves. We say that. I wish I wrote down a quote by Bernice King the other day, and I'm going to see if I can find it real quick before we transition into something. But I'm going to say this. When we talk about allies, we have military bases all across the world. in most countries, we call ourselves allies, and that's why we're there. But if you really pay attention to the United States of America, we have no military bases of any person that we call allies on our soil. The only thing we have on our soil from any of our allies are embassies. And they're all located in Washington, D.C. One location. Why? So we can watch them. But when you talk about allies, you want allies who are going to treat you the same way you treat them. And I put it in that perspective because in most cases, and people will get upset with this that have served, but I've served, so I can freely say it. We go into the other countries, we impose our will on them, but we call ourselves allies to them. But we want to impose our will for them to do the will of what we want, not rather what they want. That's not an ally. An ally is someone who is there to fight the battle that you're fighting for the justices that you want, for the things that you want to change, not to impose their will on you as an ally. That's not an ally. That's a dictator. I said it. Be bad if you want. But it comes down to where we have to understand that when we talk about allies, as I mentioned with Tom Hanks, these are the people that we need to start voicing more often, not by opportunity. We need our allies to be standing up for the fight and correcting these injustices when they see them happen, not only when they hear us speaking loud. If I'm loud, be louder. If I'm out front, stand in front of me. Don't stand in the rear. Come to the front. Show that you're an ally. Show that you're about justice for everybody and not just for the few. Because you can't continue to tell me that you're an ally and act like an ally and just say, well, I got a black friend. What, your black friend needs more from you than just being your friend. He needs an ally in the fight he fights every day. If you go to work every day and you hear people tell jokes and talk bad about and discriminate against people and everything, and you're a part of it and you don't correct it, but then you go over here to your so-called black friend and you sit down and talk to him like everything's cool, but you haven't addressed that over there, leave ally out of your mouth. You're not an ally. You're an adversary. You're undercover. You're doing the dirty work behind the scenes. That's all you're doing. If you're going to talk about it, damn it, be about it. That's all I'm asking. And if you're not going to be about it, shut up, move out of the way, and let another ally take your place. That's all I'm saying. And for those folks that look like me, they say they down for the cause, get out the way if your true intentions aren't the cause. I'm just saying. All I'm saying. If you're not true about what you're doing, get out the way and let somebody who is true about it step forward. So this quote by Bernice King, it says, and she mentioned it this way, even the statement, let's invite more black people to the table, implies ownership of the table and control of who is invited. Racism is about power. Even the statement, let's invite more black people to the table, implies ownership of the table and control of who is invited. Racism is about power. Does anything else need to be said? Because we get caught up in this, well, they let me sit at the table. Yeah, you're sitting at the table, but you didn't take the seat. They felt they gave you the seat. They invited you to the seat. Rather than us worrying about us being invited to the table, we need to start building our own damn tables. We need to start establishing our own tables that we sit at and what we do at our table. But we have so much discord amongst ourselves that we can't even get together to get four legs to put underneath the piece of wood to make a damn table. But we're constantly looking for allies from the other side when we got discord in the mix. When you talk about these things and you see these things happening in the news and for the NFL, and I couldn't find how many years this has been going on in the NFL. But obviously it goes back to the point of when they first started identifying people having, suffering from brain injuries and stuff like that. But I will say this, all those people who were loud, very loud, about Colin Kaepernick and his stance, and they tried to attribute it to the flag, is why he was taking a knee. For all those people out there who were loud and wanted everybody to know that they don't like Colin Kaepernick, they don't like what he stood for, they don't appreciate him kneeling, they didn't, all the things that they talked about with Colin Kaepernick. Okay, that was your opinion. But I hear crickets right now when they're talking about this race norming. I haven't heard anybody. I haven't seen anybody posting. I haven't seen all these, writers writing about what's going to happen and what's going to be the detriment to the NFL and what consequences the NFL may pay because of what they were doing, like they did with Colin Kaepernick. They always say about the NFL, protect the shield of the NFL shield, let's protect it. They didn't even protect the people who uphold the shield. But everybody's quiet. Nobody's saying anything. And they're gonna, and the thing is, once they do this $1 billion settlement, it just floats away. It just floats away. But my question would be, why can't you sue the people in charge? Why can't you go after the people to put this in place to be a normal practice? Why can't you go after the people who diagnosed you lower than just because of who you are? Why can't all these things happen? We stop when money is involved. They throw money at it and it goes away. But the NFL will continue to have games on Sunday. The preseason's about to start. They're in OTAs or whatever they call it right now. The preseason's about to start. The stadiums will be packed. All these things will still go on normal, just like they did around Colin Kaepernick, but you will never hear and you will never see those NFL fans talking bad about the NFL the way they did about Colin Kaepernick. Why? Because the NFL is an institution. Colin Kaepernick, was voicing his opinion by kneeling because he was becoming uninstitutionalized. The NFL is an institution. Colin Kaepernick spoke what he spoke and did what he did because he became uninstitutionalized. But all those players who went and got these tests done to their brains to find out if there was something wrong with them, thought they were going crazy and all these different things, they throw money at it and it goes away. But we're still talking about reparations for slavery. This started 400 some years ago. Can't find money to feed the homeless. Can't find money to take, the stimulus checks they throwing out here. They fighting about taking care of people during a pandemic and all these different things. But the NFL has $1 billion to settle a lawsuit against something they did wrong. But nobody finds nothing wrong with that because it's one of the institutions that run the state, the United States of America, because of the power of the money that they hold, what they represent, and who the owners are for all those teams. Not one black owner in the NFL. Not one. Minority owners, yes. Owners? Nah. Trim Branch, not gonna happen. Well, you know this. I know this. I still got to talk on it. I got to speak on it, bro. Got to speak on it. Trim Branch, reparations will never happen. Well, same thing. Same thing. Because it's not a priority. Go back to the beginning. Low priority. Low priority. It's disheartening when you see these things, when you report these things, when you look at these things, and the thing about it is, most of the time we see these things happening around us, And because it's not directly affecting us, we kind of look at it like, oh, here we go again. But that's the problem. We keep saying, here we go again. When are we going to start saying, oh, no, not this time. Oh, no, not this time. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. When are we going to get to that point? When are we going to get there? Let's go into this mind, body, and soul segment because we already touched on the situational wokeness earlier in the show. Mind, body, and soul. The year is 2021. It's about self-help, self-care, taking care of one another, looking out for one another, and living your best life, as they say. Trent Branch, I know you got to speak on it, bro. I'm in agreement. I know, bro. Ryan Hoodie, call a boycott. You can call it. You can call it. Either one or two things gonna happen. Either gonna be you're gonna get a dial tone or a busy signal. These people in the United States of America are so entrenched in what they believe for their entertainment, a boycott won't happen. Now, if you get these black athletes to start boycotting, you might get a different outcome, or they may have to fold. But then you got to think about it. How many of these black athletes making millions of dollars are going to boycott? They're going to voice their opinion, but boycott, that's a whole nother level. You're talking about my money now. You're talking about my money. That's the difference. That's the difference. That is the big difference. Mind, body, and soul. 2021, self-care is what we're talking about, taking it one day at a time, trying to improve on ourselves, trying to make ourselves better each and every day. And today's mind, body, and soul is just 3 words. 3 simple words. And when we talk about everything I've talked about today, it'll make sense to you. Protect your peace. Protect your peace. You know, you talk about everything going on around us in the world, but a lot of times everything going on around us in the world does not affect us as much as the people that are close in our so-called circle. In our so-called circle that has probably been minimized to a period as we grow as older because we start eliminating people. We get rid of the fat. We start cutting the fat out of our lives. But when you talk about protecting your peace, it comes into play with, for me to be happy with who I am and what I'm doing in my life, how do I go about protecting and having my peace of mind, peace in my house, peace in my everyday walk? How do I get that? It's very easy if you choose to do it. You have to start processing those things that go on around you, those things going on in the world, process them and eliminate those things that aren't any value to you. Now, I'm not telling you to, just go down your friends list, start eliminating people because they impact your peace. But if you need to do that, feel free. Because social media and all the different things going on social media, people talking about people going back and forth, who's not black enough and all these type of things, it can cause an unsettling peace within you by absorbing those things in. To protect your peace, you have to be cognizant of where you stand on issues, stand firmly on those issues, but never be afraid to look at a view differently than what your view is. Because sometimes our peace gets disturbed because we fight so hard about what we believe that we don't open our minds to understand what someone else believes. Peace of mind, peace in your house, peace in your life are 3 vital things that you need to pay attention to, you need to hold on to, and you need to work on. Because one day, you're going to also come to a point where your peace is going to be shook. Something's going to happen in your life that the whole dichotomy of who you are, what's going on with you, is your foundation is going to rock. It's going to become unstable. But if you have peace up to that point, it may waver, but you won't lose it. You have to keep grounded. And the way to stay grounded in that is also staying grounded in your faith. Because with your peace, your faith grows, your mindset grows, your mindset opens, and it'll give you a better understanding of who you are, what you're trying to do, and where you're trying to go. Don't let people around you, because they're not at peace with themselves, cause you not to be at peace with yourself. The things in the world we see, we can turn the TV off. We can turn the TV off. But some of our peace becomes disturbed, not only by outside influences, but sometimes our peace becomes disturbed by those we love. Those we love wholeheartedly can disturb your peace. And the one true proponent of disturbing your peace is you. You disturb your own peace more often than anybody around you. You know why? Because you're unsettled in understanding who you are and what you want out of this life and where you're going. Because when you become unsettled in your peace, it's because you've allowed other folks to influence your mindset about who you are and what you stand on. And you take that in and you hold on to it. And you've minimized your peace to become an internal war with your own self without knowing how to get back to that peace that you had from the beginning. Process it, cut out the fat, and keep pushing. Protect your peace. And the other part, and this is another big part, find a way to be the peace in someone else's life. Find a way to be that peace that someone that you love needs, rather than being fighting that war against them on a daily basis. Look at them, figure out what's going on with them, and try to make yourself, being in their lives, the peace that they may need throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the years, until their last day. That's all I'm saying. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, y'all. I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Appreciate the support, rwcoolins.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Everything's there. Share, subscribe, send it out. Let people know, hey, this is what we're doing over here. Next week, I got a good one for y'all next week. Next week, the show is called Unscripted with Clergy. Unscripted with Clergy. I'm going to have 3 clergy members on. Pastor Jerry L. Page, Pastor Curtis D. Thomas, and Elder Orlando Valentin Jr. They're all 3 going to be on the show with me next week, and we'll be chopping it up. We're going to be talking about some things with the church, how people are feeling about the church right now, because I'm going to bring it straight to them now. It ain't going to be no sugarcoating. I know all 3 of them, but I'm not sugarcoating nothing. What I'm going to, and I'm not telling you I'm going to blindside them, but what we're going to get into conversations about where people view the church at now, where misperceptions about the church are, and the misperceptions about the pastors. Let's just be honest. There's misperceptions about mega churches. There's misperceptions about the little church down the hill. All those things going to come into play. But we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what part they play in how we see the things that are going on around us as far as racism, politics, and things like that. It's only an hour show, but we're going to get into as much as we can, as much and as deep as possible. Oh, Lord. No, it ain't going to be that bad, bro. It ain't going to be that bad. I'm going to do my due diligence, but we just need to talk about these things, because I think a lot of people have lost a lot of confidence in the church and the people who represent the church. And what I think is the disconnect is, we've put our main focus on the church and the people in the church, rather than putting the people presenting the word that are in the church. That's all I'm saying. So we're going to get to that next week when we have the pastors on. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. I love y'all. rwcoolins.com. Go subscribe on YouTube as well. And the Just Coolins podcast, we got an episode is going to be coming up. It's going to be some sit-down conversations, but they're going to be pre-recorded, and I'll post them. But we're going to have some people on, just normal, everyday people that are going to tell you what's going on with them and how they persevere on a daily basis. Trent Branch, appreciate you, bro. Great show as usual. Appreciate your support. As I always say before I sign off, and look, let me get this right here. I want everybody to take the time right now, and I want y'all to say it with me, because I've been saying it long enough where everybody out there should know exactly what I mean. So y'all ready? Let's do this. As I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all again next week. I'll holler at y'all. Peace.